will regulated militia be necessary to the security of a free state? The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. I am glad that you've joined us on the program today. Coming up in just a matter of moments, we're going to talk with Josh Savani. He is the Director of Research and Information at NRA's Institute for Legislative Action, and he has been sort of running point on the NRA's efforts to undo the decision by the ATF to declare the Honey Badger AR-15 pistol to be a short-barreled rifle as opposed to a pistol with a stabilizing brace attached to this. We talked just a few days ago with Alex Bosco, who is the founder of SP Tactical and designed the brace that's used on the Honey Badger. And he said, that NRA has been really out in front trying to undo this decision. So I thought it'd be good to talk with Josh Savani. Now, I will say that there has been an update since we first talked with Alex Bosco about this. A couple days ago, it turns out the ATF sent another letter to QLLC, the maker of the Honey Badger pistol, suspending the cease and desist letter, I know, for a period of 60 days. So not a permanent suspension, but basically saying, hey, you know how we told you to stop selling those? Okay, well, hold off on that. DOJ is now reviewing this case and reviewing our determination. So we're once again, it's a good step, but it is not the end all be all. And the problems that inherently related to the Honey Badger issue have certainly not been resolved. So that's sort of our starting point as we sit down and have this conversation with Josh Savani, the Director of Research and Information at NRA's Institute for Legislative Action. Take a look and a listen. Hey, Josh, thanks so much for coming on the show today, sir. It's good talking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. We've been talking about what's going on with a QLLC, the Honey Badger pistol, and really the open question now about braces when it comes to pistols, and the ATF sort of arbitrarily redefining the Honey Badger anyway as a short-barreled rifle. When we talked with Alex Bosco of SP Tactical not long ago, he was very vocal in talking about the efforts on the part of the NRA to try to get the ATF to reverse this decision, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to reach out to you. So if you don't mind, Josh, what can you tell us about the efforts that the NRA is engaged in right now dealing with the Honey Badger issue that's come up?
Sure. I'm sure, as Alex probably made clear, we've been working with SP Tactical. I think I first met Alex, at a NRA annual meeting, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. So we've been working on the brace issue for a long time. Certainly, as with respect to the Honey Badger, and the issue specifically with the pistol model of the Honey Badger that uses a pistol stabilizing brace. We've been trying to get an answer exactly why this is different. There's nothing that seems objectively different about this type of pistol stabilizing brace versus a bunch of other ones that are affirmatively approved. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing that really should make it be treated differently. So that was our concern. If you look at some of the statements we put out, that's why while ATF claims that this has to do particularly with this model, it raises a lot of concerns about ATF being able to, as you put it, arbitrarily, which is, unfortunately, I think for ATF, that's the legal standard that they have to operate under. They can't act in an arbitrary manner. If you were to create a hypothetical for an administrative law class in law school, this would be an excellent example of what not to do as a government agency, is to, this, I'll know when I see it, is basically, that's what we said, this famous Justice Potter Stewart line of, they just make a case-by-case determination, and they even admitted that, in a comment I think that the ATF gave to the Washington Free Beacon, they basically said, hey, we just make these on a one-off basis, which is exactly the opposite of how, these agencies are supposed to operate.
Absolutely.
But I didn't really totally answer your question yet as far as is what we're doing. We're trying to activate all gunners, obviously, to contact the DOJ. We have a contact form up. And then we're working, with them to make sure that they understand the actual, the impact that this has on firearm owners, and on members of the industry like Alex or like you. It makes it impossible for them really to, and really impossible for gun owners to operate without some type of clear standard.
Absolutely. And to that end, I mean, it's, going back to that, the phrase that you used, we'll know it when we see it. I mean, that really is the standard, it sounds, if you want to call that a standard, that the ATF is using. And as you say, that makes it virtually impossible for fire manufacturers to know going into the design of their product, whether or not, they can think that they're following the ATF guidelines. But they don't know for sure. And again, in the case of those, not only the manufacturer of the Honey Badger, but the owners of these pistols, they're now basically being told, hey, listen, you may run afoul of the National Firearms Act. You could be looking at 10 years in prison if you don't register this a firearm under the auspices of the NFA, even though the ATF has previously said that, these pistol braces should not be viewed as, devices that would turn a pistol into a short-barreled rifle, if there is the potential for that brace to be used to shoulder fire that firearm, which is, as you say, I mean, that's basically the standard now that the ATF has gone back on, and now they're saying when it comes to the Honey Badger, well, people could use this. And they say that they believe, although they haven't given any evidence, they believe that this was sort of intended to be shoulder fired. But there's no evidence of that I've been able to tell. That's certainly not the contention of the manufacturer of the Honey Badger pistol. And so it seems like, we're kind of dealing with two things, it seems, Josh. On the one hand, the firearms manufacturers themselves, they want clear regulations and clear policies that they can follow, as opposed to ATF seemingly making it up as they go along. But then they also want those policies to actually make sense.
Right. And I think that's exactly it. And I think if you look at the history, it can be a little bit enlightening about, I guess, kind of how much ATF has really dropped the ball on this one, because it's been 8 years. They first approved, they first said that a pistol stabilizing brace is not designed, redesigned, made, or remade and intended to be fired from the shoulder. That's the actual statutory standard. They can't avoid that. That's what the law says. And they admitted in 2012 that just by attaching a pistol stabilizing brace to some type of large frame pistol, most obviously some type of or most commonly some type of AR-15 pattern large frame pistol, that it does not redesign it when it does not. It's not intended to be fired from the shoulder. And so that's that kind of sets the framework that all manufacturers and gun owners were, going to operate in. Obviously, they've gone back and forth on quite a few details as far as what can be done with braces, as far as, at one point they took the very ridiculous position, I would say, that touching an otherwise legal product to your shoulder either redesigns or remakes it. That's an interesting use of the English language. I don't think anyone has ever thought that you could redesign a product by, using it in a particular manner. Obviously, if an end user makes substantial modifications to a product, maybe that's redesigning or remaking it, but certainly not using it. And I think ATF has, knew that entire time that was a bit of a ridiculous idea that you could, redesign or remake it. And so in 2017, they essentially admitted that was wrong. They claimed that they clarified because they didn't want to admit that they were wrong, but I think that they knew that was wrong. That a product is not redesigned or remade by touching it to your shoulder. And in that time, they've affirmatively approved a lot of different products. They've said that that particular product is not that is a stabilizing brace and it's not a stock. In December 2018, they stopped doing that. They said that you have to submit entire firearms, which made it even harder, especially for companies like SB Tactical, where they don't make firearms, they make pistol stabilizing braces, and other firearm accessories. So it's hard for them to know And it's just an absurd standard because, the AR-15 market is very, and the AR-15 pistol market as well are very large, and there are lots of different products. And to try to say that, you have to submit this in every possible configuration for us to affirmatively approve is absurd. And again, it's that I'll know when I see it approach. And it really just seems like an intentionally making it more difficult for gun owners and for the firearms industry to operate.
Yeah.
And so, that's how we got to where we are, is that they've had 8 years. They haven't come out with any clear public standard, which is the easy solution to this. If ATF can publish a rule or, that lays out what the public, publicly lays out with an opportunity for public comment, what the standards are. And that's really what federal law requires. The Administrative Procedures Act, you can't make things illegal without telling people that they're illegal. That's the whole idea behind American law, is that there can't be secret illegal activity that a person can engage in that they don't even know. That's like one of the most un-American concepts, that you can imagine.
Absolutely.
Is that, we're going to charge you with something that you didn't even know was illegal. And so, the administrative agency is the one in the position to create the rule. So to the extent that the ATF tries to, I guess blame manufacturers for not submitting every product, that's not the manufacturer's job. It's the agency's job to make the law clear.
Absolutely. So what has the response been in terms of? I know that you've been trying to get gun owners to contact ATF and the Department of Justice. What type of response have you seen so far?
Yeah, I think that as expected, the response is very large. Talking with different manufacturers of various types of stabilizing braces, there are quite a few, several million gun owners who own these, and they're very common. They are they're definitely out there, and it's interesting when you're talking to congressional staff, and they're like, oh yeah, I have one of those. So that can be helpful though for them to be able to pass that info along to their boss, so that their boss really does understand how common these types of firearms are, and that ATF it's causing a lot of problems, and it's potentially putting, as you said earlier, it's a very serious crime, and it's very. I find it very frustrating. If you look at the cease and desist letter, especially that was sent to Q, ATF thinks it's very important to remind people about every second or third paragraph that, there are serious criminal penalties that the result of the consequence. They'd like to threaten people, and that's very, I don't think that's what our government is supposed to do.
Yeah.
I think that they should have to provide clear rules that people can follow, and, and those rules should make sense. If no person who's ever set out to design a stock has made it look like any of the existing, stabilizing braces. No, if you want to make a stock, you don't put a big hole in it and make it out of a soft material. You don't put a sling point facing rearwards on it. If it's not extremely thin, so it's basically, very difficult to use it to shoulder a firearm. That's not how people design stocks. We know what stocks look like. We have hundreds of years of evidence of what a stock looks like, and pistol stabilizing braces are not those, objectively. And the ATF knows that. That's why in 2012 they said that, simply attaching it to a pistol didn't redesign or remake it into a rifle. And if the barrel's short enough, into a short barrel rifle.
Yeah. You mentioned just a couple minutes ago talking with congressional staffers. Is the White House aware of this as well? I mean, is this something that you've been talking or have been able to talk with anybody within the Trump administration about?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to everybody that will listen right now. I think that the fact that the president's own son definitely owns at least one pistol stabilizing brace. I think he's posted pictures of them on, shooting the, pistols with stabilizing braces on his own Instagram. So, it's clearly a very widely used product. I think that there's now a much better understanding of how widespread, these types of products are and how popular they are. And that it's very important that ATF I would say that it's very important that ATF always act within the law, but certainly when there's a lot of people affected, it makes it, a little bit clearer that they need to act within the law, because people can make their voices heard to their elected representatives and get this administrative agency corrected.
Are you at this point? Would you describe yourself as hopeful that this will get resolved quickly? Confident? Doubtful? I mean, where are we right now?
I don't know.
Josh?
It's hard to, government action is always hard to take guesses at. So I don't know that I would. I would say maybe cautiously optimistic. But and I think that if you look at the, obviously they did suspend the cease and desist, and in that suspension, you put that out. I think yesterday or the day before, and ATF reached out to them and said that the cease and desist is suspended. I don't think that's enough. I mean, we made clear that we don't think that that's enough, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. And in that letter, they mentioned that DOJ is reviewing kind of the entire matter of how the actual classifications of these devices.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a reason to be optimistic, is that the DOJ has involved itself in a way to kind of rein in ATF on this matter.
Yeah, and the suspension of the cease and desist letter. I mean, you're right. That is an important step forward, particularly for QLLC and those who own the Honey Badger pistol. On the other hand, you could also point to that reversal and say, look, this is again part of the problem with the ATF when they're making it up as they go along. That's when that's when they find themselves in these situations where they're all of a sudden now having to backtrack and say, well, never mind about that cease and desist letter for now. But the prospect of that being reinstated is still sort of hanging over the head of every Honey Badger owner and the folks at QLLC as well. So as you say, this is a step in the right direction, but it is still indicative of the problem that exists right now within the agency.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think that's the exact point that a lot of people took from that. The suspension letter is that, it makes the point that, well, you can obviously easily reverse yourself because you have no standard, and they don't know really what a particular product. As you said earlier, the standard is I'll know it when I see it, and so there's no way that they can say under any type of objective reasoning why a particular product is designed it or made to be fired from the shoulder.
All right, one last question for you, Josh, and I don't know if this is this may be a little outside of your wheelhouse, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay.
How much worse do you think this would be under a Biden-Harris administration?
Yeah, I mean, well, one, the 2017 letter that got rid of the ATF's absurd idea that you can't even touch an otherwise legal product to your shoulder, and that somehow redesigns or remakes it. I think that happened because they understood that they were in a different world with an administration that actually has respect to the Second Amendment. We wouldn't be in that position if we had certainly a Hillary Clinton administration. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's substantial reason to believe. I mean, if you go on the Biden-Harris website, in some ways this would be the least of our worries, as far as they want to ban the firearms they want to ban and confiscate the firearms that the pistol braces would attach to. So I guess the pistol braces themselves become it's a little bit of a superfluous question at that point. But obviously, yeah, I don't think that we would be getting any type of positive movement out of a different administration that didn't have respect for the Second Amendment rights of Americans.
Yeah, and as you say, you're right. I mean, under the Biden-Harris plan, the AR-15 pistols, AR-15 rifles, every other firearm that they would define as a so-called assault weapon, you'd either have to turn them in exchange for the empty promise of pennies on the dollar, or again, you'd have to register your firearms and your magazines under the National Firearms Act, and if you didn't, then again, you'd be looking at 10 years in a federal prison, $250,000 fine. I mean, that's what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to do with tens of millions of commonly owned firearms across this country. So you're right. It is maybe a superfluous point to think about the actual, a pistol stabilizing brace. But I fear that is, look, we know that Joe Biden's going to use legislation. We know that they're going to try to use the regulatory authority as well to to go after gun owners in the firearms industry. And I have a lot of concerns with, as many problems as we're seeing right now with the ATF, that this would just become exponentially worse if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris win in November.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and as far as using the regulatory process, I mean, I don't think anyone was as aggressive as Senator Harris was when she was still running for president in the primary, as far as what she would do to use, executive action to, try to attack Second Amendment rights. So Absolutely. I don't think that there's any reason to believe that they would, I think she did the normal, like I would give Congress 100 days to act and then I would do it myself. But I mean, that's not how the law works. But, it's not saying that she won't try, and that, if they also carry through on their threat to, now they won't threaten to do it, but, I think everybody knows that their non-answer on packing the Supreme Court is really about, making sure that they have a backstop for any type of unlawful actions that they take against Americans.
Absolutely.
Because a threat to pack the Supreme Court is a threat to destroy the Second Amendment. I think that's very important for people to understand.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's critically important for people to understand. And it won't just be the ATF making it up as they go along. Under a Biden-Harris administration, you would see, the entirety of the executive branch. And if you say, if they pack the court, then you see the judicial branch doing the same. Listen, Josh, I really appreciate you coming on the program, sir. And if there are any updates, please let us know. We would love to get the word out to our audience as well, and hope we get a chance to do this again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. And I hope we have good news. Like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic, so hopefully we can get this sorted out in the near future.
Hey, fingers crossed. Again. But in the meantime, is it too late? Are you still encouraging gun owners to reach out to DOJ? Do you still have that portal set up at NRA-ILA.org?
Absolutely. If you go on our site, it's one of the top. If you just go to NRA-ILA.org, it's one of the top things. Especially if you just search, NRA-ILA honey badger, it'll take you right there. There's just a button that you click to take action. All you have to do is just fill in your name, and I think it's your address and your zip code, and then you just hit submit, and it submits a pre-written response. You're free to write and add your own response, but we try to make it as easy as possible for people to take action. They can. If they want to write their own response, they're certainly welcome to do it. But yeah, I highly recommend that people do that. DOJ needs to know that people are still very concerned, and this needs to be fixed.
Absolutely. Let's make our voices heard. Josh Savani joined us from NRA-ILA Research and Information Director. Josh, thanks again for your time, sir. Look forward to talking to you again soon. I appreciate Josh joining us on the program. A lot of good information there, and we will continue to follow what's going on with the honey badger specifically, and with pistol stabilizing braces in general at the ATF. But, again, I don't think this point can be reiterated enough that as problematic as we might still find some of these ATF decisions, it's going to be exponentially worse under a Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration. All right, let's turn our attention now to our good deed of the day. Our armed citizen story, our recidivist report. We'll start there. I actually wrote about this at Bearing Arms earlier today because I was just so ticked off. I didn't just want to save this for the show. This case is unbelievable. Why are Chicago prosecutors undercharging accused violent criminals? So Kim Foxx, who is the Cook County State's Attorney, the prosecutor for Chicago, already under a lot of criticism for the large number of felony cases that are simply being dropped by her office. About 30%, 29.9% of all felony cases have been dropped entirely by the Cook County Prosecutor's Office since Kim Cook has been in charge. That is far higher than her predecessor, which was about 19.4% of all felony cases dropped. Kim Foxx has now added to this. But there's another issue here. There's the issue of undercharging criminal defendants. Website CWB Chicago reported on the case of 33-year-old Marshall Duvall. He is a 4-time convicted felon. He is now accused of taking part in a string of recent robberies in the city. Let's see, one of them, October the 2nd, 8:55 in the morning. An offender wielded a baseball bat as he tried to rob a 49-year-old man outside of the victim's home. When the men began struggling, the victim's wife appeared, and then Duvall allegedly got out of a nearby tan Mercury Marquis with a gun. Duvall allegedly pointed the gun at the woman, demanded her purse, and then he shot at the husband as the man ran from the scene. He then fired on a witness who stepped out to see what was going on. That witness actually shot in the foot. Marshall Duvall's also been accused of robbing a Lyft driver at gunpoint and firing several shots into the hood of the man's car after taking his money and phone. Now, Marshall Duvall is facing robbery charges right now, but those are the only charges that Marshall Duvall is facing. Not attempted murder, not aggravated assault, not discharging a firearm, not being a felon in possession of a firearm, even though he has 4 felony offenses to his name. Nope, prosecutors have only charged him right now with robbery. Yeah. At a time in which homicides in Chicago are on pace to be the highest in 2 decades, Kim Foxx, the Cook County State's attorney, is not only dropping an incredible number of felony cases altogether, but when given the opportunity to get tough on violent criminals, she's instead undercharging them. And by the way, keep in mind, Marshall Duvall facing robbery charges, but he's not likely to be convicted of robbery charges. 97% of felony cases in this country end in plea bargains. So Marshall Duvall, who, as CWB Chicago pointed out, could be facing attempted murder, aggravated assault, felon in possession. In addition to those robbery charges, he's facing none of those things, and he will likely plead down to reduced charges and get a slap on the wrist, even though he is allegedly, responsible for at least 2 armed robberies involving injury in at least one case. And the sad thing is, the worst part about this entire story is that Kim Foxx is probably going to get reelected. She's up for election this November. Chicago Sun-Times actually endorsed her. So I wish this story had a happy ending. I wish that I could say, hey, you know what, maybe. No, I don't think so. I don't think anything's going to change. In fact, I think it's likely to get worse in the city of Chicago with Kim Foxx running these cases. On to our armed citizen story of the day from North Carolina, Person County, North Carolina, where ABC 11 says a homeowner shot a knife-wielding home invader late Friday night. This was about 10:30 Friday evening, according to Channel 11 WTVD. Male neighbor was shot while attempting to break into a home along Rhododendron Lane in Person County. Authorities say a man inside the home shot the neighbor 2 times in what appears to be self-defense. The chief deputy of Person County, Kevin Crabtree, said the home invasion suspect should fully recover. Hopefully will be released from the hospital in a matter of days. Shooting remains under investigation, but at this point, again, appears to be a case of self-defense. We will give you any updates out of Person County, North Carolina, as they become available. And finally today, our hero of the day, or our good deed of the day, from Lilburn, Georgia, where an off-duty police officer helped to save the lives of 2 CSX employees after a train derailment Sunday morning. Officer Almedin Ajanovic was finishing a job. He was off duty at the time, early Sunday morning, and he heard calls about explosions in a train derailment. He said he parked his car, ran towards the train, and then he said there was a loud boom and an explosion. He said seeing that versus hearing it on the radio, he said it was definitely a scary moment. I can imagine. But despite that fear, he said that he knew that there were people who needed help. He said, you want to get there in time and help anyone that's in need. He found 2 crew members who were on top of the derailed train that's now leaking fluid. He didn't know what it was at the time. He said, I was a little nervous because the creek was red. The train's on its side. It's partially in the water. It's leaking out this red fluid. The 2 men could not even figure out if there was dry land for them to step on if they got off the train because of how dark it was outside. But with the help of Officer Ajanovic, they made it down safely. All 3 made it back to his car. He gave other first responders information about the wreckage. The material inside the train, according to CSX, was ethanol. They say that they believe heavy rain and flash flooding contributed to the derailment. Officer Ajanovic says it's astonishing that this ended the way that it did. He said, I'm grateful that they're both okay. We're all okay. I'm just grateful and speechless just thinking about it. It gives me chills, and I was very emotional. So in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing, off duty, but always on the job. Officer Ajanovic there in Lilburn, Georgia. We thank you, sir, for your very good deed. That is all the time we've got for you on this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. I want to thank you for being a part of the program, as always. And I really do mean that. Don't forget, we'll be back tomorrow with more of the latest Second Amendment news and information from all across the nation. But in the meantime, you can subscribe to Town Hall Media on YouTube. That way you'll never miss a program. Or you can subscribe to Bearing Arms Cam and Company on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, the usual locations where you find your quality podcasts. And you'll find us there as well. All right, we'll be back tomorrow, as I said. But until then, be well, be safe, be free. And we'll see you soon with another edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company.